So yeah, some crazy stuff happened twice actually. It was a shit show, the shit show. And then, like I said, I went back to New York on my birthday, and coming back to New York, I don't know. People say one thing and then do another. In life, you'll learn that you have to watch people's actions because a lot of the time, people's actions don't mirror their words. People lie, basically. People say one thing and do something else. So never trust. Just don't automatically give trust to somebody based on their words. A lot of people, um, for whatever reason, you can't trust them. Like having expectations. There's like this quote. It's like a biblical quote about expecting certain things from humans when humans will fail you. And yeah, there was a lot of foolishness then. Um, but I came back to New York, and then I was applying for more jobs, and I was like, I'm here, so it's gonna be good because I'm not gonna have to worry about like, oh, they contacted me, and they want me to do an interview in person, but I'm not that. Like I said, I mean more so than now. Telecommunications, like the video chats and all that, that would have sufficed. Like Skype, I would have been like, hey, can we do a Skype interview because I'm not in New York currently. I mean, I would tell them that I'm not in New York currently, but it was like whatever. Like, oh, will you be able to fly to New York? But yeah, it was some crazy stuff. But you can trust people, but make sure that their actions and their words that they mirror each other. Some people will sell you a dream. Um, so, and that was in reference to housing when I came back to New York. But I came back to New York and I went from Manhattan to Queens because when I was going to school, I lived in the Bronx because housing was in Riverdale in the Bronx, and like this bourgeois area in Riverdale, in a bourgeois building with doormen, which was a good thing. The doormen, they were nice, most of them, except for this one, who I caught watching a porno. Anyway, well, looking at the porn website, but yeah, let me get back on track. Um, I went from Manhattan to Queens after coming back to New York, and then I was in Queens. I was looking for jobs, and I had some contacts. And at my first not my first interview, my first professional job. Um, that was I was living in Queens when I interviewed for that job. Yeah, because I had a very long commute. I did like the to the D train, and there was some shenanigans with the D train, and the D train was like delayed, so I had to contact the person interviewing me, like the program director, like, hey, and she was like, oh, it's okay that I take the D train. It does that all the time, and that was like outside of like when you apply for a job and they ask you your salary requirements, or they ask you to like list your salary. That job, she was like the only person in terms of an employer, because after her, they may have, if the application asks for your salary, if they ask you to list it, it didn't match, right? So she was like, she's the only one who said, oh, like you have a master's degree, like is the salary range that we're offering good for you? And it was fine for me because one, it was more than what I was seeking, which I should have been seeking more. Never sell yourself short. Um, so, but it was also more than other case management positions that I had seen in New York. Like the salary was way more. New York is expensive, but the salary for the salary, salaries for some case management positions are trash. But that one, and at that time, it was good. I felt it was good, and I was like, oh, maybe I could work with this. I could do something with this. Blah blah blah. So I did the interview, and she gave me different scenarios about what I would do if I came in contact with a client and they didn't want to do X, Y, Z. How would I respond? And then I also met with a case manager who was at the main site, and I did like these different prompts online regarding to that position. So it was like, and this is the thing, this is what I'll say in reference to employment, because people get discouraged easily, and like it may be difficult to navigate the waters, especially if you're coming out of college, right? If you're coming out of college, or if you're coming from school and you've never been in a professional setting, it can be like, very scary. But this is what I'll tell anybody. If you apply for a job and they contact you for an interview, the job is yours. You just have to keep it. That's it. And I think that if a lot more people adopted that mindset, then it will be less like, it will feel like a weight has been lifted off of their shoulders. It would feel more, I guess, free flowing. It would be easier if, you know, with the job thing, if people were told that, if people adopted that mentality. I seen that somewhere a long time ago. If you apply for a job and they contact you for an interview, the job is yours. You just have to keep it. So I did the interview, I did the prompt, and it felt good, like, you know. So I was like, I think I got this. And you always follow up, like blah blah, hello, like dear so and so, blah 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 blah, thanking them, and then you can ask additional questions that you didn't have during the interview that you may have thought of afterwards, to see where things are going. So after that, I had to go to the site where I would actually work. It had opened recently, that building. And I met with the person who would be my supervisor. So I went there and I met with her. I was still in Queens. And then it was like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And they had to like check my references and my education. I felt like that took forever. And I had this note like in my phone. I should still have it. It was like the date, March 16th. Yeah, that was my first day. and I was pretty ecstatic. Um, so I learned a lot there about housing, about social services, about living in New York, about navigating the housing system. I mean, there's still like more to learn, and you'll learn if you ever come to live here. But housing is very tricky. So I worked in social services, but it was the housing sector, eviction prevention. Um, so, and then the landlords here. That's how I learned a lot about the landlords here. So I did that for nearly 3 years, but that wasn't my end goal. I wanted to do something more. And I felt like I needed experience in the field, so I applied for a few jobs. And I remember I got this interview for an investigator position at a nonprofit, right, a legal service provider, and I was so excited. That was a dud. But like I said, if they contact you for an interview, the job is yours. You just have to keep it. But with me, I'm not over. A lot of people underestimate me. A lot of people underestimate my abilities. Some folks see me, like this one lady told me, she was like, "Oh yeah, baby, they gonna try you." And then you get the thing where people say, "Oh, how old are you? You just a baby. You sound like a baby." Blah 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 blah. And because I tend to be very laid back, unless you make me mad. Unless you make me mad, I'm very laid back. And I be minding my own business. So I don't know that type of personality. I guess some people feel like it don't work in certain things or in certain places in certain sectors. So it's always seen. I feel like anyway, because in my experience, somebody always underestimates me or my abilities or what I can do, and that's annoying. So I was still at that job. It just felt like So in 2017, that's when I applied for some other jobs, and there was this one position, and I was like, oh, cause at the time, right, I was like, I want to work for the FBI. Like, I want to be the black female Dr. Reed, basically. If you watch Criminal Minds, then you know who Dr. Reed is. Yeah. So, I was like, oh, I want the experience and blah, blah, blah. In this position, it could be like, it could be the anchor for the next step for me, in my opinion. That's how I felt at the time. So I seen it, was like, oh, I'm gonna apply. And then they had a salary range, right? But it wasn't an actual range. Like if you were new to the agency, the lower end of the salary is what you would receive. And if you had been there for some years and you were seeking a promotion, then you might get the higher end of the spectrum. But it was still stuff with that. It was foolishness, right? So the interview was all day, but it was a good thing. But it was another part of the interview that I didn't like. Actually, two parts I really didn't. I did not like it. But because I was tired of being what I was at, and I felt like it was too. I didn't want to do that anymore. It wasn't what I was interested in. I was trying to get into another field. I was like, this is my out. So they called me, right? They emailed me actually, like blah 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 blah. But the start date is not. It was the start date was the day before my mom's birthday in 2017, and it was like, oh, blah blah blah. And I called and I asked about the start date, because I was like, this not gonna work, because I had so much vacation time at my old job that I could have got paid out for that, but you had to give a certain amount of weeks notice, 15 excluding holidays, in order to be paid out. And then also, um, you had to be vested for a certain amount of years to get your pension. But I had a lot of sick time and a lot of vacation time because I never went on vacations. If I went away, I went home, I went from New York to Chicago. It was some type of family event or something going on. But like vacations, I didn't go on vacations. And I didn't take sick days really. If I took a day, it was because maybe I had doctor's appointment. Maybe I need to go to the dentist. And then sometimes I didn't even stay out the whole day. And then other times, if I took a sick day, it was something else going on, like a personal day. But I had all this time. And because I didn't want to be there anymore, and this place was like, either you start now or you can start next year, I was like, I had a feeling, don't do it, don't do it. And my intuition is a bit stronger than other people's intuition, for various reasons, but I did it anyway, like a fool.